Why? 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 Why?
Why did they do this?
7K Dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. You guys who have been watching my videos for some time will know that I've been relatively neutral and actually very positive on my channel. But this time in this video, I have a lot to say, especially about the recent update. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend the entire video whining because I do want to offer whatever constructive feedback I can give as well. So if you guys aren't on Reddit, user O2Reddit posted this very comprehensive list of the problems. I referred to that and dissected the entire post while making this video because I didn't want to just copy and paste what others have done. I have included a lot of other personal thoughts and I apologize if the editing for this video isn't up to standard. Number 1. Removing Smart Mode and World Boss. I need to establish this first before moving on to bigger issues. I think the entire passive income system was something that was genius. It's so smart, no pun intended. You fight flaws with enemies which give considerable challenge, piss yourself off, try again and get an immense feeling of satisfaction and relief after you have finally beat it, and watch your resources grow. Every month you exchange your currencies for something very important. The Celestial Tower shop, which will be gone on 29th August, is an amazing source of gold, fodder and elements. There is nothing now that replaces it. Smart Adventure can give you up to 10 million a month if you do it every day, but it uses up so many keys and also rubies, unlike selling gold ores from the Celestial Tower shop. The wide variety of hero tickets here also gave many players farming sustenance, but we can only get this from Castle Rush shop now. Even though they removed the ruby cost to pull 1 to 5 star hero tickets in the summon shop, they asked us to use honor now. Really? We need honor for keys. Those new raids, which I will talk about later, cost so many keys and we have to use 250 honor just for 11 copies of trash. Not happening. If the developers really thought this through and played the game from a player's perspective, they would know how important Celestial Tower Shop actually is. What I think could be done would be to integrate the Celestial Tower Shop rewards into the Castle Rush shop and then really give Castle Rush rewards a full upgrade. The best thing is to ensure that the level of Castle Rush points received per month is somewhat near the amount of gold crystals which we used to get. Even if they adjust the cost of the Castle Rush shop by all means, it would be a great way to revitalize Castle Rush too. And why not just expand the guild market purchase options and readjust the cost of things there? In case you guys have not realized, they have been putting emphasis on guild related content. Look at where all the most important resources now come from. Siege Defense, Guild Raid, and I guess Castle Rush currently. This looks very deliberate. There's also no point in comparing our smart mode to the smart mode in Korea server because of two reasons. The cost of the items there are very high and subjected to heavy RNG. Basically, their smart mode works and can function because hero building and equipment building in the Korea server is heavily reliant on RNG and hence a lot of resources are needed to get what you really want. Meanwhile, in New World, you don't need to be sourcing for exclusive item substats because it's already inbuilt fully on your hero. You don't need to be selling countless accessories just to prevent your accessory from being lost if the upgrading fails with that dismal success rate. Also, the removal of World Boss takes away the game's one and only individual competitive PvE mode. If we think about that, it's really huge. So are the developers telling players that the sole purpose of this game is PvP? And not everyone loves PvP. Is there any concern for PvE players, or is there even a proper PvE development team for the game? I'm not entirely sure. The lazy conversion of heroes like Snipper and Bidam probably suggests that this wasn't a well thought out decision because their skill sets are completely irrelevant for their specializations. Siege Defense and Brawl were also slated to be very innovative updates that will make the game interesting, but look at the fate of these modes. Brawl doesn't even exist. Also, trophies for PvP achievements are proudly displayed on your player screen but not PvE achievements. My thoughts are that competitive PvE is so essential, especially in a game where the PvE content isn't even strong and compelling enough to be repeated. Do we have story dungeons? No. Do we have unique dungeons with challenging enemies, RIP Tartarus, that resets monthly? No. So what I have actually typed on Mobirum before is that the game should have a tiered PvE competitive mode. Now that every item has an inherent value, the game can actually compute a PvE point for players based on the number of PvE items every player has. The game will then tier players according to this point. This will ensure that players who are progressing at the same pace will be competing with each other instead. The problem with World Boss was that all players were fighting for just a higher rank. And of course, newer players will have absolutely no way to climb World Boss well, and it was regarded as endgame content. With this system I have suggested, you will compete for the top 5, 10 or 20 spots in your tier, and at the end of each season, the rewards given out should actually help to push the player into the next tier. This makes the mode much more relevant and actually enjoyable for players of different levels. So as players climb the tiers, the reward system gives them equipment that are progressively useful and relevant. From PvE revolutionary item tickets to selectors, to Awaken +5 selectors, to PvE jewels, to world boss item tickets and selectors, and possibly alongside power-up stones. This will actually compensate for the next point I want to talk about, and that is number 2. Gear is challenging to get and hard to upgrade. This includes the lack of PvE item accessibility. I think it's really ridiculous how this got completely forgotten by the developers because it plays such an important role, especially for newer players. If you just joined the game, you can actually still get PvE items, and this is something completely overlooked by everyone, and that is from the jumping check-in event where you can actually get 4. Getting that +10 revolutionary item kind of already gives you a +10 world boss item via the new item rank up system, as long as you have the power up stones. Of course, you can also get them from Pointer's Star. One other way is Guild Dungeon. And if you really are just simply relying on Guild Dungeon, you are going to take forever to get good PvE gear. Note that it is also possible to get revolutionary items and boss items in the level 6 and 7 rate respectively, but tell me, what are the odds? What are the odds? For the PvP side of things, raid and dragon items are insanely hard to obtain and power up. The only sources of raid items are from the item raid, weekly check-in, as well as the monthly quest clearance. Of course, they are also given in the jumping check-in event. Previously, we had raid shop, smart mode shop, and lots of synthesis in place to allow us to play with our items and get dragon items. But with all this gone, it has become so difficult and it scares me to even want to count how long it will take to get decent gear. Oh, and Growth Dungeon, item Growth Dungeon has become pretty lame. Synthesis and item salvage are both removed, so the trading in and breaking down of items is no longer possible. Essentially, new players are stuck with those equipment that they have and can only rely on the new raid to get more, if they can even climb. In the past, we could readily trade in trash or C rank raid items to get Ash rank versions and subsequently synthesize for dragon items. As costly as that was, at the very least it was structured and clear, and it was a step-by-step process beginners can easily pick up. I understand the developers want to simplify all these clicking and trading in and all the processes involved, hence they developed the one-click upgrade. I appreciate the change and I'm someone who supports the new system. However, even if the logic of the system is good, the support for it is not optimal. This is in terms of the accessibility to power up stones and the sheer amount of it needed to actually make a complete item. Even the impossibility of ranking up C rank items is questionable. And the entire pointlessness of 4-star and 5-star normal items dropping all over the game is extremely frustrating because they serve no strong purpose anymore. 6-star items give you really little power-up stones, and I guess that's still something, but I have never gotten so many 6-star items in my entire 3 years of playing, so it actually feels quite hilarious. Which brings me to point number 3. The new raid makes me speechless. Not only does it have some bugs, the key costs are simply insanely high. 21 keys for auto clear per day just for a single raid, 63 keys in total. Those 63 keys can earn you 84 rubies in World War 5. And if you purely rely on auto clear to clear your mileage, it will take you at least 2 months to get one selector. I think the most important thing is to compare this mileage and duration to what we have before. For items, this is a huge decrease. Remember, we can get up to 3 dragon items per substat from synthesis previously every month, excluding the monthly quest selector. Now we can only get 1 in 2 months. You might argue that, well, it is possible to speed it up by fighting the raid on auto more. So let me ask you this. If the developers intended Auto Adventure to help players who do not have the time to be able to earn resources, what makes them think players are going to spend time farming in this raid that costs so much? It doesn't make sense to me. And looking at the rewards for raid 7, 6-star items are also included here and the rates for them are high, but they are also useless, and that's what you get for spending 7 keys. The developers said that the new raid modes are supposed to help players progress even better in the game. Well, if they kept the old item upgrading system, yes, I would agree and even thank them for all these items which I can use to power up my better items. But this is no longer the case. How will getting all these lower tier items help new players if they use up precious keys and also do not have much power up stones? And furthermore, newer players probably can't even hit raid 6. So to get one selector, it's gonna be what, 4 months? What about jewel raid? I actually have no issues here. Jewels were hard to come by to begin with. New players had virtually no way to get jewels except by farming in World 9 or by gacha, which they shouldn't be doing. So like what I mentioned in my auto adventure video, any additional source of crap jewels is welcomed. But again, the endpoint rewards are very debatable. To be getting 4-star, maybe even 5-star jewels at level 7 amongst all the other rewards is honestly very laughable. I really don't think stronger players who have played the game for so many years need to be given stuff like these. At this point, we don't know the drop rates or fall off old jewels, so if there was a rough comparison in terms of numbers of keys spent, then we can estimate if it is indeed worth the farm. Why do I say that? It's because for accessories, a fellow player Chris who commented on my video said that he managed to get about 1 to 2 Galidas Isabella accessories by just farming over and over in level 7 accessories raid. So the drop rate came out to be about 1 Galidas Isabella accessory every 440 keys spent, and that roughly equates to about 400 rubies, which is also the same as a single gacha pool. If you look at it from a bigger picture, the rates in this case is actually very good, because sometimes even after spending 2000 rubies in accessory gacha, you may not get any Galidas Isabella accessory. The only issue now is the time spent to go full auto on this particular raid if you really want to farm it. But all that said, it is still complete RNG. You may be spending thousands of keys and not even a good accessory could drop for you. Is this the progress they wanted to give players? And just get rid of all those 4-star accessories in the level 7 raid as well. And lastly, improve all the extra raid rewards. I mean, look at these 22 accessories I got from the extra raid 2200% result. I don't even know if I should laugh or cry. How are these supposed to help any player progress exactly? At this point, let me summarize all the suggestions they could take. First would be to make a new PvE mode with a tiered system like Arena and give PvE related rewards and more power-up stones. Second, to revamp the current shops such as Smart Mode shop related items are still accessible via purchase to give players more control over their progress and not subject themselves to crappy RNG. Third, to revamp the raid difficulty and rewards. Tier 1 is an utter joke. Why should it even exist? Why not make the tier 2 or 3 as the tier 1, spread out the rewards and get rid of crap rewards at level 7? After so many months of quality of life updates, why did it really have to come down to one single update that destroys all the amazing things set up before this? Number 4. The Reddit article actually also shared how many currencies have become less available. These include soul essence like crystals and 6-star heroes. I would like to add Topaz as well to the discussion. I do not entirely agree with these observations. Soul Essence was always tough to begin with. The point was made due to the removal of Smart Mode Shop, which actually further reduces the accessibility to Leia's, which sell for 5000 Soul Essences. But remember, Leia's new function only started a month ago and there was also a monthly purchase limit, so this shouldn't affect players greatly. Before the Mythical Awakening update, you could only sell special heroes for Soul Essences, and back then, special heroes without the first acquisition bonus had to be built from level 30. Since the update, they have increased the amount of Soul Essences you get when you sell special heroes. They also increased the base level to 40, which means every player now needs lesser special heroes for their progression. In fact, the pool of essential heroes seem to have reduced with the removal of Smart Mode. And wow, I actually found a benefit for the removal of Smart Mode. So yes, that leaves players more room to sell special heroes and obtain Soul Essence. Light crystals will also be harder to obtain due to the removal of Smart Mode Shop. That is true, but remember there was a limit where you could only buy one set of light crystals per month. Furthermore, light crystals are completely farmable in World 13 as I have talked about in my fastest farmers video, and they are still available in the Topaz shop. Most importantly, what percentage of players actually require light crystals on a frequent basis? Close to none, because first, you need to have an awakened jewel, which new players will not have sufficient resources for, and second, you must really be constantly getting the wrong jewel main stats, and also consciously be upgrading these wrong main stats to require a large amount of light crystals. The removal of 6-star hero tickets as selectors from the weekly and monthly quests is also an issue brought up. For the weekly quest, the reward has been replaced with a 6-star power-up crystal, so that is covered, but the lack of 6-star hero selectors not only gives players lesser resource for mythical power-up, it also reduces any possibility of topaz farming via Fina Transcendence. With the removal of World Boss, the weekly topaz amount a player can get has decreased, so besides Arena, the only other source of topaz is really to utilize your Finas and transcend as many normal heroes as you can. And now your most worthwhile source of 6-star heroes is strictly via fusion only. That's basically most of what the article talked about, and I'm sure many of you also have dropped comments on my videos and posts about it. One reason why I feel that this update was particularly rushed and haphazard is because smart mode shops are still available. Due to the presence of these shops and the compensation along with it, it makes it hard for the developers to really shift around stuff and make items or resources more available than they are. As much as I hope and have faith that something will be done after the shops are completely gone, there is still about 3 weeks left on the clock. Can developers really afford to wait that long when casual players are quitting as the days go by? I know they are working hard to fix all the bugs right now, so we can only wait and see if there will be a thorough developers notes next Monday to address all the concerns. Lastly, and unfortunately, the game is pretty unfriendly to newer and returning players right now. What you can do is be patient and try your best to complete the new raids and hoard onto whatever resources you have. Of course, make sure you spend your smart mode currencies to the fullest before they get removed on 29th August. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video will be liked and shared, and hopefully the developers will make the game better as soon as they can. See you guys really soon.